Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about uh, there was this poll, this BTS rapper beat Henry Cavill. I'm not too happy about it. I guess it's nothing in the long grand scheme of things, but I wanted to mention it because I just saw it and it has me in a tizzy. Also, man, California's got some crazy stuff going on. Absolutely absurd. And I keep seeing Scott Wiener, man, in the news about different bills that he's passed or is pushing through that's really, really strange. So in California, if advertisers like have any sort of ads for guns that appeal to children, that's really bad. But in California, if you want to get an abortion and don't want your parents to know, don't want that to show up in the insurance or hormones, if you have hormones or something, and I guess those be on your parents' insurance, they can hide that. So I'm just like, what kind of state is this? What is happening? Why are people elected? Are people paying attention? Is everyone okay with this kind of stuff? It's just really bizarre, really insane. And there's some really, really obscene, perverse stuff that gets passed in California that's just really crazy. Also, there's an update from the story that I shared some time ago. There was a parent from Clay County in Florida who, and this is one of the reasons why the parental rights and education bill went forward. People are like, oh, this stuff doesn't happen, blah blah blah. No, there's some tragic stories that happened outside of Florida, but there was some stuff that happened within Florida. And so there was a father who discovered that his child was suicidal, and after she tried to kill herself and it wasn't successful, obviously, thank God, but she had questions about her gender identity that was being affirmed in school, and so her parents took action. They also took legal action against the school, but he says she's all right. I'm going to play his testimony today because I think it's important that people are aware that there's some weirdos out there that want to experiment on your kids and that really want to push a lot of this gender ideology stuff because it's I saw someone make the point of this, which I've said this myself too, but it's like a civil rights issue, and the state and the parents are like the last offense between like the state taking over or something like that. And with the civil rights issue with the gender identity stuff, the state will see like, oh, you don't affirm this, oh, you're denying your kids these certain amount of care or whatever, well, we're going to take your kids away. And there's parents who don't want their kids taken away if they can't bully them and scare them into complying, which if they can scare you enough to Frankenstein your child, I they've basically got you in control anyway. But if you don't go under their thrall, then they will remove your children. And this isn't just parents on the right, it's also parents on the left. So we gotta shine some light on this, and I do think that people should ask their elected officials running for this stuff this November and on moving forward if they approve of some of the more radical um, affirmation that the White House is suggesting that kids have, including surgery on minors. And that is happening in the United States. Also, CNN is there's people flipping out. Daily Beast wrote a report about CNN. They keep having big changes. Of course, Brian Stelter is gone, and we know Cuomo's been gone for a while, but Zucker's out and stuff. But they're talking about more cuts, and they're really scared. The Daily Beast said that called the the CEO of Discovery right wing, and he is a dim donor. So I don't understand that. He just really wants to gain back the public trust of CNN. I don't know how long that will take. I don't know what all that he'll have to do. We're experiencing, I don't know, so I guess some California seeing some of these people go. It's always a sad thing when someone, I don't know, if it's you, you know it's sad. You lose your job, and there's staff, and there's people who've worked with you, etc. It's a very, very sad thing when that happens. When there's all that you're assured in something, and then it's like the rug is just ripped from underneath you, and there was a gaping hole there, and it's like a cartoon. You look down and you're falling. That's but on this but some of the stuff that these people have been pushing, and the fake news and the propaganda has just been egregious. And it's like you shouldn't be on air saying that stuff. If they want to hire you for that stuff, that's one thing. They can do whatever as a business. But if they want to regain trust, and some of these people got to go. So Brian Stelter, the same source that I saw that had Brian Stelter was going out, they're saying that other people are going out too. And we'll have to see if that happens. But like Jim Acosta, Don Lemon, they may be gone soon as well. So we'll have to see. But all sorts of things to talk about today. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website, different articles. I've been writing so much lately. I haven't posted anything because I want to submit an op-ed to my one of my major local papers, and I started writing, and then I was like, it's kind of too busy. And then I started kind of separating different things just to see which take I was going to go. And then I found out something in my research for that piece that I'm like, well, this would be a really good route to go. So I did post on Facebook that 53% of the of abortions that happen in Michigan were of black babies. And that's really, really high. Like, people are aware of the fact that black children have a disproportionate amount of abortions, but usually it's like 38%. That's still high considering that nationally black population is like 12 something percent. Maybe 13, but I think it's 12 right now. Usually it's like 38% maybe of abortion. So that's high, and it's definitely disproportionate. But in Michigan, it's 53%. 53%. So there's like 29,000 abortions. It's more than 29,000, but I can't remember if it's like 29,300 off the top of my head, or 600, something like that. But it's 29,000 if you go by Guttmacher's Institute's number. These are numbers are from 2020 that I'm talking about. Guttmacher Institute does more research, more extensive sort of research than what states will provide. Like the state might just have like people who got abortions who are residents in the state. Guttmacher might be like looking at residents outside of the state who got abortions or something. So their numbers are like 31,000. So a lot, and Guttmacher is like a left institute, but a lot of people, reputable sources, use Guttmacher. They find it reputable. But we'll just go with the state provided and say it's 29,000, over 29,000, nearly 30,000. 53% of that are black babies. That's it's horrific, period. But I'm like, why why is it so disproportionate? Why? That's an incredible difference. It's not even on trend with the rest of the nation. It's abnormally high. Now, if you don't know how many, well, I guess if you're not familiar with the state, you won't know my city. But in my hometown city, right now there's like a population of nearly 60,000. It's like 59 something. So if half of those people suddenly died or were killed, we'll say, and since like 40 something percent of abortions was like suction, not like the pill, that was suction. Well, let's say they were killed by violent, I don't know, tornadoes or something like that. That would be a state emergency. That would be a national tragedy. If half those people died in my home city, that would be as many people are killed by abortion in 2020. And half of those people, more than half, would be black. incredible. 80, ooh, was it 89? It was either 85 or 89% were unmarried women. That was very high. Most abortions from women under 20 was only like 8.3%. So most people who have abortions are adult women, not teenagers who made an oopsie. 66, I think, percent was like women who've had a pregnancy full term. So they know how babies are made. And out of that 66% of the women who've had preterm baby have carried babies to term, like 40% of those women had at least two or three. So a big chunk of these women are having um abortions after having multiple kids or something. That's what it looks like. A big chunk. It's not a majority. Um well, maybe it is. Because I think 66% of the women who had, so there was a big chunk of women who had abortions who had never been, no, who had never had them. Yeah, so I guess the majority of them would have had been pregnant before but not had abortion. That's what I'm thinking about because I was thinking about another stat. Yeah, pretty remarkable. And our governor is fighting so hard to make abortion in our constitution. It's not in our constitution, doesn't recognize this right, but she's suing to make people just recognize it. And even if that fails, it's going to be a ballot initiative. There was some fighting about the language. I don't know if that got resolved or not. If I had to guess, I'd probably say it's going to go on the ballot. And that would make abortion legal up to viability, but it widens viability, the definition of viability. So I don't know if it's going to ultimately be 24 or weeks or later. But I wonder how many people who signed that petition are aware of just some of these stats and why these women have abortions, etc. But my big question that I like to pose, that I'd like people to think about is why are these politicians so gung-ho about protecting abortion rather than the women who have them? Because my governor also vetoed like $3 million for like pregnancy crisis centers, and also vetoed like $10 million that would go toward advertisement of saying, hey, why don't you put it up for adoption rather than having an abortion? Now you can say, well, believe like it's already a hard decision, don't bother women, but a lot of women make these decisions. Like if you read about when people go to pregnancy crisis centers or you talk to people who work at them or gone to one or whatever yourself, a lot of people are desperate. A lot of people are like, I don't know what I'm going to do. How could I do something like this? They're ashamed. They're scared out of their wits or whatever. And sometimes you just really need someone to assure you, hey, you can handle this. And there's people who will help you. So why is it that the state or our current state government, why are they so against people saying I'm here and I want to help? The Whitmer didn't say this, but her spokesperson called them like so-called like health facilities or claims that they deceive people. But there's a big one in Ann Arbor right on their website. It says we don't refer abortions and we don't do abortions. So I don't know what they think they're tricking people. They have OB-GYNs on staff. But let me find the quote really quick, or part of the quote at least that I'm putting in my piece. 1 second. We already talked about how Elizabeth Warren is just like against them too. They said they often use deceptive advertising that targets young women and women with low incomes who are seeking abortion care. And I'm like, why is that? First of all, why is it a bad thing that they target women, especially women who have abortions, and say, hey, we don't think you should do that, and we would like to help you get through this? Why is that a bad thing? I can understand if you think women should be allowed to have abortions. I don't understand why people don't think women shouldn't have abortions. You're gonna have to explain that to me. You're gonna have to explain that to me. It used to be safe, legal, and rare. Did you notice the rare is gone? The rare has been dropped off the face of the planet. It's gone. It's like anytime, anywhere, any reason, no limit. That's what like the Democrats are basically pushing now. And someone has to explain to me why it is a good thing that so many babies are killed in 20, I can't remember if it's 2021, but basically we're at like a million abortions, induced abortions, not miscarriages, induced abortions like a year in the US, right? That's like the number we're at. In Michigan, at least in 2020, you got to look at, I didn't look at the 2021 numbers. There's a reason why I was looking at 2020 numbers. 20, that wasn't too long ago, obviously. But we're at like 30,000 in Michigan. And if you, that's a lot. It's a big number. It's a big number. And so the reason why I was looking at 2020, and I didn't mean to go off on this rant, I didn't even finish my intro, but here we are. The reason why I was looking at 2020 is because Gretchen Whitmer in 2020, they were looking at COVID numbers and they saw that Black people or minorities, but particularly Black people, were dying at a higher rate with COVID than white people or whoever. Now, I don't think it's any secret that there's comorbidities that are kind of different in the Black community as far as like weight gain and um, high blood pressure and other stuff like that. So, yeah, I think a lot of that disparity could probably be rationalized through comorbidities, and you can go into like the social outcomes of how that happens, et cetera, in the first place. But I don't understand why the government didn't really get on like a, I don't know, get Michelle Obama back and be like, yeah, guys, we told you to work out. We told your kids to work out, but you should have been working out because now you're going to die. So, I don't know why there wasn't like a really big push for folks to work out during the pandemic. Like a good friend of mine, who's a huge TikToker, has got over 1 million followers now. This is Savvy. She really took her health, the bull by the horns and lost a lot of weight within like the past year and a half or so because she did go and get a vaccine, but she was like, I didn't even like really look up stuff and really talk much to my doctor about this. Like she just rushed to make this decision about her body and she realized like that wasn't a smart thing to do. So she just wanted to get her body in check. And she looks fantastic. Not that she didn't look good before, but she's, in a better place for her health. The, the government didn't push that. They wanted you to, they just went with the fear porn. They didn't do it, anything to really work on prevention. But anyway, the governor and her office was like, the answer is racism. The answer is racism. They declared it racism a public health emergency. And I'm not joking. And so they said that they wanted doctors, nurses, or whoever, but I know they made state employees or whatever that they have to take implicit bias training. And Gretchen Whitmer was like, we all have biases or something like that. I'm like, oh, so you're saying you're racist? I think that's what Gretchen Whitmer said. Okay. Okay. She said, okay, implicit unconscious bias exists within each of us. That's what she said. So you heard it. Gretchen Whitmer admitted to being racist. So that's the route that they decided to go because they looked at the COVID numbers and the deaths and they saw a disproportionate amount of Black people dying from COVID, and they're like, it's got to be because of racism and these heroes who are nurses and doctors, we're now calling them racist, and we got to have them take training and the government take training. Everybody's got to take training because everybody's racist. That's what they went with in 2020 with COVID. So I'm looking at these numbers for abortion, and I'm like, 53% of abortions are black. They're black women, black babies are dying. I think it's bad when all of them are dying. That don't like lose my point, guys. So my point is, if they would look at that disparity, and they look at disparities with like police profiling in shootings and all the other kinds of stuff, every time they see some kind of disparity, they're like, the answer is racism. I, why are they just ignoring this? Why are they ignoring this? I'm not saying the answer is racism. I'm just saying this doesn't fit the this doesn't fit the pattern for it fits the pattern. It doesn't make sense why they're ignoring it. I mean, I know why they're ignoring it. But it doesn't, if they were ethical and they were consistent and they had standards, they would be like, this is a lot. And even if they wanted to protect abortion, they should be like, this isn't normal. Again, I think it's like 38% nationally with like the number of like black abortions. Now that's still a high number because the population is still like 12-13% or something. But in Michigan, the population is 12.4%, and the number was 53%. So even if you, again, even if you believe that women should be able to have abortions, even if you believe that, why do you want them to? Why why do you think it's a good thing? Why does the president go out and say we need abortion because low income women and black women need abortion? Do they need abortion, or do they just feel like they feel like they need it? And can we address why they feel like they need it, and maybe stop them from getting them? Because it doesn't seem, when you start going after pregnancy crisis centers and saying we don't want to fund them, Elizabeth Warren was like, I'm going after them. When that's the route you decide to go, it just makes it seem like the women aren't the ones you care about, that you care about abortion, period. Now, I don't know how much that has to do with how many checks Planned Parenthood cuts to the governor. I haven't looked up all those numbers yet. Might take a minute to go through all the filings. But we do know they're pouring 53 million into the midterms. I think it was 53 million. It's over 50, or maybe it's just 50, but it's at least 50 into the midterm elections. They got a lot on the line. And apparently, if black people were like, you know what? We are killing off our generations, especially in Michigan. If they were like, we gotta cut this out, that'd be 53% of their business gone in the state. They wouldn't be able to function if 53% of them, if people were just like, we're not going to kill our babies anymore. That is a really high number. That is a really high number. I can't get over it. Even if you think it should be legal as like a necessary evil, why fight to make this such a obtainable thing? Why fight people from changing their minds? People shouldn't be fighting women on changing their minds on abortion. Like it's I understand not giving people a ton of grief if it's like a medical issue, but that's really not the case with abortion. They're like elective. It might be because of income, but you know what? People, we've had a church like within the community for longer than I've been alive. We've had people who've had a lot of babies, some of them out of wedlock, many out of wedlock, people who've had lots of kids within wedlock, some people who had kids within wedlock, but they weren't all the daddies. Anyway, the parentage was questionable. There, seen it all. People can find a way to take care of their kids. I've been like, I've talked about how we did not have like an easy sort of financial time growing up. People can find a way. There's large social safety nets, and there's people who want to help. But we need to eliminate the suffering instead of the child. And it doesn't seem like there's any sort of effort. There's the opposite of the effort to stop it. It's just the truth. And I have to ask why. I have to ask why. Because again, it doesn't seem like the governor cares at all about these women having the abortions. She wants to protect the abortions. Now, she's saying, you want to protect their choice and their right to do that. Sometimes people want to do things that they should not be able to do, or that will be bad for them, or that's just morally corrupt. That doesn't mean that we say, hey, just have free reign to do bad things. Does it? Like if you had a good friend and they were with someone who was no good, maybe you'd be silent, maybe you, before like things got into, would you warn them if you knew that they were about to go with a monster, or would you just say, well, she's gotta, it's her choice, let her, I trust her? What if she doesn't have all the information? What if she's been manipulated? It's a manipulation to just talk about abortion and just call it reproductive health care. Reproduction's already happened. Reproduction's already happened. Or there's so many people who don't consider it a life. Okay, most abortions, granted, they happen before week 12. That's in the first trimester. I could, in the report from the Michigan, they didn't say specifically which weeks. They just said before 12 weeks when I was looking at it. But they did say like 40%, like the most popular abortion was like via suction. So I'm gonna assume that most abortions maybe weren't via pill, that they were done a little bit later. I guess maybe you still could have possibly had, they don't recommend the pill, I think, after 10 weeks normally. So let's assume most abortions probably take place between 8 and 12 weeks. Do you know how advanced a fetus is at like 10 weeks? That you can listen to the heart. By week 8, I think you can listen to it and you'll hear an 180 beats per minute heart beat. Of course, you can detect it earlier, but it's very, very formed by that week. By week 10, like the major organs have started to form. Obviously, they're not all mature or anything like that. The brain still got a bit to go, and you still got to work on those lungs and stuff. But they've already had like different nerves and stuff like starting their work. You, by 10, you've got fingernails that are forming. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I just don't think a lot of people are aware of that. I mean, you have Planned Parenthood who will fight against like people seeing stuff on sonograms. A friend of mine, I posted her video when she had her abortion. Planned Parenthood was like, oh, you won't be able to see anything. They told her that at 8 weeks. She was a minor. She didn't really want her abortion. She was coerced into it by her parents. And she even wrote on her form that she wanted to keep her baby. I wonder if Planned Parenthood was like, well, let me blot that out. But that was her last ditch effort. It was like cry for help. But they told her she wouldn't be able to see anything. She wanted to see the sonogram. They're like, oh, you won't be able to see anything. And so she didn't realize that she had been lied to all that time, and just she was pregnant, and then saw her baby at 8 weeks on a sonogram, and she heard the 180 beats per minute. And this is someone, even though she like didn't really want her abortion at the time, a lot of women will like cope by just going gung ho. and being really, 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 really pro-choice. And so she actually wanted to have a career at Planned Parenthood, but once she realized they lied to her, she just became like a fierce pro-life advocate. So there's just a lot of information that I'm sure people aren't aware of, and people have been very apathetic on the issue. I'm sure a lot of people on the right don't know the things that I've discussed and I've read about and talked about, but I 53%. And again, all I don't want any baby of any race to, die in abortion. But I do find it interesting that you had all these people doing the Black Lives Matter stuff, and you have such a disproportionate number here. And you know what? Most people will write it off by saying, "Well, that's what that was their choice. They decided to do that." But why? Why did they decide to do that? I don't think they should be allowed to decide that. We're talking about someone's life. We're talking about life and death. But why did they decide that? Now, I don't think the government can really have a good solution to this stuff. Um, because I think a lot of stuff is social, like cultural, moral. Um, I think it's a shame. Detroit, Pontiac, all these places you drive by, you see so many churches on so many corners. And what's the impact that you feel? What kind of lives are people living? What kind of choices are people making at the end of the day? What kind of like moral impact are you having? Not one that's good enough. And it's sad. It's sad. Um, but I think they can do better if they want to do better. But I definitely don't think that the government's going to be the more any sort of move the needle on the moral truth. But what the government can do, at the very least, is to protect the rights and the right to life, the right to not be violently aggressed upon, the right to not be killed, to the unborn. It's not sex education, because I told you most women who have abortions are adult women. Many of them who've had babies before. They know how that process works. There is a lack of education for sure with like embryology and fetal development for sure. A lot of people don't know. People are like, we need sex education and stuff in school. I'm like, how are you going to teach it? Because if you're just going to hand out condoms, um, like, or now they're doing like gender ideology stuff with sex education. They're trying to put that in within. If people should teach abortion is bad, that this isn't a good thing that we do. We should at least do that, right? They don't want to do that. So sorry, didn't mean to go off on that. But anyway, I will have some posted. I'll see if they're interested in any of the op-eds I'm working on, and I'll post them on Black Tea News anyway. So lots of stuff that will be out relatively soon. So make sure you're checking stuff on the website that you guys drop your email on Black Tea News. So you can get those sort of updates, and make sure you're following across all the different social media platforms on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, etc. All my handles are at Black Tea News. With the exception of Twitter, that one's at True Black Tea. My backup TikTok is also at True Black Tea. Remember, it's black like the color, tea like the drink. Thank you to Brighter Mission Pack. I'm in their studio. If I say something today, or if I already said something today that triggers you, no one cares. But I do appreciate the opportunity to use the space. If you guys would like to check out any merchandise on the website, got the goat hoodies, goat t-shirts. I do have them in different colors. If you want to check those out. I am not the victim you're looking for. I do have some cool abortion stuff. Life wins. Rowan Casey aborted. We got that stuff. Also got the Pro-choice men are sus shirts. Check those out. Um, Man, there was one. There's I saw someone send a very awful text message, and it wasn't a text. I think it was an Instagram message to, I think it was Seth Mandel on Instagram, and no, it was Seth Dillon. Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Joe Rogan, they had a conversation about abortion, and Joe Rogan like pressed him on exceptions for like rape and stuff, and so Seth, explained it, stayed pretty strong. Joe was like really, um he interrupted a lot. It's a very, people say it's a nuanced conversation. Yeah, that is really a conversation you have to be um delicate with, but you have to, explain your positions. And he was just like interruption, 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 interruption. At least from the clip that I saw. But he explained it. So anyway, someone sent a message to him talking about that they were going to sexually assault his wife and daughters or whoever, and hope blah blah blah, just awful, terrible stuff. And I'm like, how can you, I don't know, try to support abortion so much in the name of the women, and then say such terrible things and be such a terrible person. So I'm like, that is a prime reason, dudes like that, why I made this pro choice men are sus. And if you don't know what sus means, suspect. Because they'll have all, I'm gonna affirm, we affirm the women, but if you're a pro-life woman, then come at you hard. Some of the most egregious stuff that's been said to me, like on TikTok and stuff, were by men defending abortion. Just, and I mean vile things that I will not repeat, because I think I'll get flagged, to be frank. So yeah, check out stuff on the website. And if you do like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com/donate. Really appreciate anything that you guys can do, as we're going to have a lot of videos, a lot of articles. There's so much to do to get done between now and election time, and you really, really can help. And I appreciate everyone who does. I appreciate everyone who likes, shares, subscribes, all that kind of goodness. I've talked so long about that particular issue. Again, I didn't really mean to, but but it is what it is. You guys know I'm really passionate about it. Okay, I do want to play this video from this parent from Florida. We talked about it some time ago when we were talking when the parental rights and education bill was just like huge in the news. If you don't know what the parental rights and education bill is, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the Don't Say Gay bill. So just a refresher, the Don't Say Gay bill had nothing to do with not saying the word gay. What the bill did, it said that, hey, teachers can't hide things from parents in regard to anything mental health wise with their children. You can't conspire to hide stuff from parents. It probably sounds like a good thing if you're a normal person. And then there was another aspect of the bill that you can't teach sexual orientation or gender identity stuff to kids K through third grade, which is like 5 to 8 years old. Now, a lot of people are like, that doesn't go far enough, but you can't it excludes, I mean, it goes up to other grades if you teach it in an inappropriate way. What means inappropriate way? I don't, that's for Florida to decide, but that's what the bill is, right? So it says sexual orientation. It doesn't say same sex. It just says sexual orientation. So it doesn't single out gay people, but that they said it was a Don't Say Gay bill. Wasn't true. And that's what the media ran with. That's what Democrats ran with. People making billboards in other states about it. Or people from Democrats from other states were making billboards, I think, in Florida about it. It was just really insane. But when people did polling, it actually had like the language of the bill. They're like, no, even Democrats were like, no, that makes sense. Sounds like an okay bill. Just so much disinformation surrounding it. So some people are like, something like this isn't necessary. And I'm like, that's not true. Definitely in California and other states, we've heard of incidents where teachers were indoctrinating kids on the down low, keeping things secret from parents. But it was also happening in Florida. So there was this heartbreaking story of this father who had his daughter tried to commit suicide. He didn't know that she was having all these sort of gender problems, and they were doing this stuff secretly at school. I've talked about this before on like social media and stuff, and some people pushed back and said basically it was the father's fault for not knowing. And I just want to say, kids can be so sneaky, and I don't think that's fair at all. This man was like the initial video that was going around. It was a local news story. He was just sobbing, just heartbroken for his child. And kids can be so sneaky with sometimes when they're doing stuff that they know is wrong, but for whatever reason they feel like they need to do it. Like people who will self-harm, people who will be bulimic or whatever, you know, they'll do things to openly deceive their parents, and then like let their grief take it out on themselves around friends or at school or something. So it's just, I don't understand why people are acting like they've never met a child before, um, or heard of something like that. But I guess people will rationalize whatever to find a villain in the story so they can protect gender ideology for whatever reason. So I just wanted to say that before I went ahead and played this video. It's about 3 minutes long, but I think it's important.
January of 2022, I went to my daughter's elementary school to deal with a very sensitive incident. My daughter attempted suicide by hanging in one of the school bathrooms. My wife and I were told that by the school counselor that it happened because of an ongoing issue with her gender identity. We were in shock because our daughter never showed any signs of questioning her biological sex. We were told that they knew about the gender issue due to meetings they were having with our daughter behind our backs. We learned that during these meetings, our daughter's confusion was affirmed and validated through the use of fictitious male names and male pronouns. Our daughter was living a double life without our consent or knowledge. She was affirmed and socially transitioned in school. Due to the nature of the incident, our daughter was Baker active and taken away from us with minimal contact for over a week until she was released under our care. As a family, we had to pick up the pieces, clean up the mess, and start a period of painful healing. However, we decided as parents from the beginning that we were not going to affirm the dysphoria. We were not going to validate a delusion, contrary to the recommendation from some professionals in the field. We provided, and actually we did provide it, unconditional support with proper mental health care and non-affirming therapy to our daughter. Underlying disorders like depression and anxiety were properly treated. We removed her from the school environment and placed her in homebound. We brought her back from her confusion. She is steadfast and sure of her gender, and the suicidal ideation is gone. This semester, actually, she is ready to go back to the brick and mortar school setting. In summary, our daughter was suicidal when she was being affirmed. However, when she was brought back from that state of confusion, the suicidal ideation disappeared completely. Therefore, my daughter's case disproves the current narrative that the lives of children with gender dysphoria are in jeopardy if they do not get affirmed. If you validate one delusion, then what is next?
Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but people are so quick to jump to gender dysphoria that people are not treating depression and anxiety. And there I've heard people who transition and detransition because they realized they just really had a lot of internalized misogyny. I read a piece on Friday from a Bridget, I can't remember her last name, but it was it was called "Why I Regret Being a Slut." She used to write for Playboy magazine, and so she was just talking about her life and how she had a lot of different emotional issues that she just kind of hid in a persona of being a man eater. And she's like, there's women who she knows that are very I guess confident in their sexuality and are I guess sluts and don't have the same kind of issues that she had. Um, but there's a lot of women who are like her. Um, and she did ended up relating it to the gender ideology stuff at the end, and these women who don't who believe that they want to be men, or as she put it this way, they would just rather just not be women. And I've seen that so many times on social media. TikTok is you can barely talk about the stuff on TikTok. You'll get flagged so fast. It doesn't make sense, like on the surface, why so many people are so quick to affirm. Why you got Joe Biden getting on national TV saying, if you love your kids, you will affirm them. And then they put out a statement on what that is. And it's not just changing names and changing pronouns and expecting everyone else to go along with it and bully, emotionally blackmail people, if not just legally make people do compelled speech. It's also giving them puberty blockers. And it's not a pause, just a pause. Some people call it a pause, like on what somebody Matt Walsh interviewed on What is a Woman. It's not just pause. These puberty blockers can cause serious damage, especially if someone wants to undo them, but also medical surgery. And they're in the United States, there are people who are performing surgeries on minors. And by the way, here's the White House's chart talking about affirmation. So it upsets me still that you had Rachel Levin, who was confirmed by the Senate, is now the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, who was asked by Rand Paul about gender affirming care, giving puberty blockers to minors, and Levin would not answer the question. And Levin was like, "Oh, it's a nuanced field, and I look forward if I am confirmed talking with you and your staff." And I'm just like, why would you have to talk to Rand Paul after you're confirmed? There's no leverage there. I mean, I guess co-equal branches of government. If they call you, you got to answer or whatever. Maybe, not so much. But why not answer the question? Because he knew the answer. He knew how people would react, and they didn't want to tank the nomination. This historic nomination, which, by the way, trans stuff aside, just should not be there from the COVID response from a state. I won't go all down that rabbit hole again today. We mentioned it many times before. So you have some places in the country that are just really, really into pushing this stuff. California. So I mentioned at the top of the hour how California is. This is an article by a T-Post Millennial. California gives children rights to undergo abortion, medical gender transition, but not to see ads for guns. And you'll never guess who's like supporting some of this stuff, man. Scott Wiener, state senator. behind some really perverse, weird bills. As California continues to weigh legislation that would make the state a refugee for children seeking gender changing treatments for their gender dysphoria, the state has suggested that minors are old enough to weigh life changing decisions regarding their bodies, like surgery and vasectomies, but not old enough to see depictions of firearms. A bill prohibiting gun manufacturers from marketing their products in a way that is appealing to children reads that minors are more impulsive and less likely to consider future consequences of their actions, but their state allows minors to get abortions and undergo medicalized gender transition without parental consent. And so there's a recent bill where they it, on insurance, and I guess it's your parents' insurance, um, that they can hide sensitive stuff like hormones or abortions. I'm like, well, that's kind of crazy, especially since they're not paying for it. Um, what is wrong with this state? I Oh my gosh. In June, AB 2571, which pertains to the prohibition of marketing firearms to minors, allows lawsuits of this nature, was signed into the state's laws. California legislator Scott Wiener, again, this is Scott Wiener, backs both bills to give minors full medical agency and to prohibit them from seeing potentially appealing images of guns. And by the way, this is the same state senator that believed we needed to stop criticizing, I guess, gay men having really promiscuous gay sex when talking about the spread of monkeypox. Oh my gosh, guys, the CDC released like suggestions on how to have like gay sex, I guess, while monkeypox is going on, and they're like masturbate separately across the room, do online stuff to each other, wear leather. I'm not joking. Someone had posted it, and I'm like, is this a joke? And this was a reputable source. I'm like, but still. And then I went to the link with the CDC, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's real. Um, we're just living in a really weird time. Really weird time. The law equates the firearms industry with those of alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco in that exceptions to the First Amendment must be made in restricting marketing towards minors that are prohibited from purchasing these items. This bill would prohibit a firearm industry member as defined from advertising, marketing any firearm related to product and defined in a manner that is designed, intended, or reasonably appears to be attractive to minors, the bill states. To determine whether the marketing is in fact marketing toward children, a court would consider whether it uses cartoon characters or caricatures, brand name merchandise for children, firearm related products, and sizes and colors that appeal to minors, and uses imagery depicting children using firearms related to products, amongst other considerations. Um, Another bill that's currently being considered by the Assembly after amendments were made to the text is SB 866, which lowers the age that a minor can receive a vaccine without consent from their parents. So, what is wrong with this state? I can't imagine. Can you imagine being a parent and your kid comes home and you find out that they had a vaccine without your consent? Now, I don't know how many kids would be gung ho to just go up and have one behind their parents' back, but I'm sure the real reason why they're having stuff like this is so schools or whoever can nudge the kids into that without their parents knowing, so they don't have to tell them, and so they won't get in too much trouble. That's what I think these sorts of bills are for, not for protecting the agency of minors who can't sign a contract, but you want them to consent to having a vaccine. And so the age that they want to lower it to is from 18 to 12. To 12. There's a big gap. 18 to 12. Not even 15. 18 to 12. And guess who is pushing that? Scott Wiener. This What is wrong with California? I don't like. I know there's things wrong with California, but why this bad? Why to get this bad? Why to get this bad? I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to get to the CNN story today. I'm gonna just end talking about this Henry Cavill thing. Before I go. Um, so I don't even know where this poll or whatever is from, but Kim Namjoon, a member of BTS, was named the most handsome man in the world in 2022 by TC Candler, and Henry Cavill is second place. And I had posted this on Facebook. I think some of my followers think this person is trans. He's not, or maybe they're making jokes. I don't know. That's a real man, and they just do things different in Korea. But I said, in case anyone doesn't understand why we need an electoral college, so that was kind of my funny joke of the day. But yeah, that's why mob rule democracy is a terrible thing, and why we need a constitutional republic. So here's a better photo of him. I found, and that was like, I think the best one that I found. He's not my cup of tea. It's not that I don't like Korean men. There's some Korean men that I'm like, that's a nice Korean man, I guess, but not my juge, as people say. But here's Henry Cavill. I'm just like, what happened? uh, you know, BTS is like the most famous band in the world, though. Most famous, most popular. The Korean bands and music, like they post a music video, and it's got a billion views at least instantly. It's it's insane. I don't really listen to the pop music. Like, I don't listen to a lot of music, I guess, anyway, but Mic Drop is a great song that they do. If you haven't heard that one. But it's Henry Cavill, man. A Superman. I'm like him. I'm to the men watching, like, oh my gosh, I'm still a female, guys. I've liked him since I saw Count of Monte Cristo, and he was playing his son Albert. I guess that was the first time I took notice of him, and then he did Immortals, and then there was talk of him being James Bond, but they said he was a little too young. And there was talk of him being Superman, but they said he was too young. And look at him building a computer. I'm gonna go before I embarrass myself. Blushing a lot. Anyway, thank you guys for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Go to blacktnews.com. Check out all the content stuff that I have on my website. All my videos, my articles. Make sure you guys are submitting your emails if you want to keep up to date with that in that sort of way. But make sure you're watching on different social media platforms. Remember, it's the handles Black Tea News, black like the color, tea like the drink. The only one that's different is Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.